The Eagles are done. And I will look, the health of their offensive tackles has been a problem all year. They don't have a running back. It's been a problem.
Defense isn't as good.
I will leave some of that for Stephen A. I want to focus on two things here.
Sure.
One, Super Bowl hangover, which is a real thing. You know, the Eagles won a lot of close games, one-score games last year, and they've lost some of those this year. And those things tend to regress to the mean, meaning if you, like it happened with the Raiders a couple years ago, you win a lot of close games, your record looks really good, everyone's excited about you. But if you're winning the close ones, that could easily go the other way, and it usually does because it balances out usually the luck. The following year, the year after that, and you come back to the pack. A Super Bowl hangover partly describes that. Partly it describes, hey, when you lose one of those close games and you don't have that good feeling and the momentum and the nice record, can you still get up and have that adrenaline on the line of scrimmage that you need in the NFL? The Patriots can. The Patriots, when they suffer a loss, they come back the next week, it's over, it's ancient history, they're a brand new team. Most teams that ever existed can't do that. Most teams, when they get a little lucky, they need to ride that momentum. If they don't have that the following year, they come right back to the pack. It's difficult for them to kind of maintain that momentum and that chemistry the following season when they don't have that. I think that's a big issue with the Eagles this year. And one of the reasons it's a big issue, remember when Carson Wentz got out of the gate fast and Jared Goff slow. And we said, Jeff Fisher, Stephen A., you harped on Jeff Fisher. And I pointed out Doug Pederson, that's a former quarterback, but it wasn't just Pederson. It's that the offensive coordinator was a former quarterback. And the quarterback's coach was a former quarterback. And everywhere you looked, Carson Wentz was surrounded by a former quarterback, putting him in a position to win. Well, guess what happened to their offensive coordinator? He's gone. He got a head coaching job. And guess what happened to their quarterback's coach? He's gone. He's got an OC job. And now they elevate their receivers coach to offensive coordinator. And you wonder why, with two tight ends, the way he has them, Carson Wentz, they're not using tight ends like in the red zone. Two tight end sets and stuff. Why aren't they scoring like that?
Because they've been very transparent and everybody knows that's what they're going to do. So what Doug Pederson has been resorting to offset that is trying to throw screen passes to your running backs, and that ain't working correctly. Jay Ajayi is out for the season. LeGarrette Blount's no longer on the squad. Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood, they may not be the guys to get it done. They can both play, make no mistake about it, but how they're being utilized, I think is a bit more transparent and too predictable as it was in years past.
Because it's not just Pederson, it's his staff that's not there anymore.
Yeah, but the point is, listen, I'm not getting into all of that. And the reason why I'm not getting into all of that is because you're the head coach. Figure it out. I'm looking at Doug Pederson right now. When the Eagles were going well, Max Kellerman did not come up here and talk about all those positional coaches that are doing a great job. Max Kellerman said Doug Pederson is a great coach. So I'm going to look at Doug Pederson, and I'm going to say, well, this year, not so much. Hasn't been that great. The reality of the situation is clear. Doug Pederson has been a bit too predictable, number one. Number two, their running game is highly suspect for obvious reasons, and he's trying to overcompensate with it. I think he's taking the ball out of Wentz's hands entirely too much. I think he's been about moving the chains. He hasn't allowed Wentz to attack deep nearly as much as he should. With Jeffries, with Aguilar and those boys, you should be able to do it. You should actually let Wentz go. I don't think he's been doing that. I think he's been micromanaging a little bit too much. You know, in their first possessions, these guys don't make things happen. They were 3 and out waiting to happen. In the first quarter of this year, they've scored a combined 21 points in the first quarter. The Philadelphia Eagles offense has scored more than 24 points once this entire year. Just one time. When you look at that, Doug Pederson came over here as an offensive line. Not only as somebody that worked under Andy Reid, not only as somebody who did a good job in Kansas City, but he came to Philly, and galvanized them in such a way that everybody was looking at them and saying, yo, this man really, really knows what he's doing. Well, is it the players that have a Super Bowl hangover, or is it Doug Pederson that has a Super Bowl hangover? I think it's time that we start asking ourselves that question. Don't get me wrong. He's a Super Bowl champion. Ain't nobody calling for his job or anything like that. But I'm just saying, as we look at this team, and he's talking about everybody looking themselves in the mirror, maybe he should look himself in the mirror.
No doubt that applies to Doug Pederson, too. And it's difficult to say how much of an influence Reich and Mike D, Filippo, who went to Minnesota, had on Wentz and the offense. No doubt about it. And also, Wentz wasn't available in the beginning of the year. And then he kind of started slow because he's coming back off an injury. And that's what I mean, Stephen A. They're done. Because now they're 4
Wait, you said the Cowboys aren't done. But you feel like the Eagles are done.
The Eagles, remember when I said they lost 2 consecutive home games?
Yeah.
There was a road game in between, but they lost consecutive home games. That they couldn't bounce back from that. They just lost another home game. That's 3 in a row. And now you know where they're going next? They're going to the Saints.
It's bad.
They're 4-6 right now.
Bad,
really.
it's bad, no question about it. But let me tell you something. I'm going to roll with, even if they lose this game to the Saints, I'm going to roll with having faith in a Super Bowl champion than a coach that can damn near win a playoff game in Jason Garrett. That's number one. Number two, I will get back to being critical of Doug Pederson in this respect. This is the same man that just weeks ago said there's no pressure on us now. That was an idiotic thing to say. We called him out on it at the moment that he said that because that's the wrong message to send to your team. Everybody's been talking about the creativity on the part of Doug Pederson. I don't want to hear it. I'm looking in the national television cameras right now, and I'm saying, Doug Pederson, you're a Super Bowl champion. I understand why the running game is suspect. With Ajayi gone, all right, we understand it. We get that. We understand that LeGarrette Blount going. We understand that. We get that. But the personnel, for the most part, is pretty much intact. Lane Johnson was out last night.
There it is.
Lane Johnson was out last night. But again, we're not talking about, listen, the Dallas Cowboys defense, give credit where credit is due. But we didn't see the absence of Lane Johnson as being an impediment to the point that
Lane Johnson's been absent all year. He's not the same guy. Jason Peters has been absent all year. He's not the same guy. Remember 2 years ago when I started saying the Eagles are trending toward elite before the Lane Johnson suspension?
Right.
And then he came back and they started winning again. And that's why I liked them in the NFC East last year when they won the Super Bowl. Both those guys are essentially gone. There is a tipping point on the O-line, and they have tipped.
Yeah, you can say that, Max, but again, then don't come to me telling me Doug Peterson's great. Figure it out.
Well,
the fact
he's
is,
been downgraded to good.
All right, thank you. That's what I want to hear.
He's been downgraded to good.
Because the point is, with the rest of the pieces that you have in place, I understand there's a deficiency there.